Death, taxes, the Blue Jackets playing great at home and terrible on the road. Why are we doing this again? We're going to talk about that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also want to apologize for the radio silence last week. Some truly catastrophic laptop issues prevented me from recording, but I'm back. They're fixed. And we're going to talk about the Blue Jackets, who had an eventful weekend. Again, a really, really great home game against the Boston Bruins, where they won 6-2, and Sean Monahan was a monster, and Elvis had a really great game, and all of these great things, you know. And then they go on the road 24 hours later, and it's a disaster. They lose 4-0. I don't understand. We've been talking about this all season. You know, the Blue Jackets are great at home and just absolutely awful on the road. They are 11-4-3 at home now, and they are 4-12-3 on the road. I don't understand. Why are they so bad on the road? Because it's not even like they've been playing different teams on the road. It's not like they've been playing with a different roster on the road. Like, the roster from Friday's game and Saturday's game were identical. They even played the same damn team. And you got just completely different Blue Jackets teams. Like, partially, I think it was that the Bruins got real mad about how Friday's game went. And, okay, yes, Jeremy Swayman is a much better goaltender than Jonas Korpisalo when we're talking about the Bruins. However, the Blue Jackets managed 18 shots on goal total in that road game. How? Why? I don't get it. Like, they had good stretches during the game. Like, it wasn't okay. It's not the worst game that I've seen them play, but it was still not great. You know, like, second time the Blue Jackets have been shut out, and really, really frustrating to watch. Just in all kinds of different ways. Like, was there some bright spots in this game? Sure. Like, the penalty kill actually continues to be pretty solid. The power play, it obviously didn't do anything in this game, but they scored. I think they went 3 for 3 on the power play in their previous game, which is maybe the best that the Blue Jackets power play has ever looked. Genuinely, maybe since I started covering this team. Like, that's not hyperbole. That might have been the best night for the power play, I think, literally since Sam Gagner was on this team, which is a wild thing to say. You know, but like to go back to the home versus the road thing. Like, yes, obviously there are differences. There was a goaltending change. Road games are always harder. The second half of a back-to-back is harder. Which is also something the Blue Jackets need to figure out. They are, I believe, 0-6 now in the second half of back-to-back games. They haven't yet won a game like this. They haven't yet won the second half of a back-to-back game, which is a problem, especially because the Blue Jackets still have another 6 sets of back-to-backs. So that's 6 games that you can almost entirely like pencil in them just throwing in the garbage. You know, they need to figure it out. They need to figure a lot of things out. But like, this to me is the most frustrating because it doesn't seem like there's a reason for it. You know, it's not like Elvis is getting all of the home games and Tarasov is playing the away games, because again, Elvis has also played away games and been awful. And Tarasov has played home games and been fine. Like, I would love they could write like essays about the difference between the Blue Jackets at home and the Blue Jackets on the road. It feels like they don't want to travel, so they just send like a bunch of lookalikes on the road. And I'm like, yeah, no, that sure does look like Sean Monahan in the face, but where did he go? Like, and this is not to like call Sean Monahan out unfairly, because I think everyone was pretty poor in the game on Saturday. Like, again, you can't credit Jeremy Swayman for his shutout. Shutout is difficult. 18 shots on goal is not good enough. It just isn't, you know? Like, I'm looking at shots on goal. From the defense, the Blue Jackets also are rolling 11 forwards and 7 defense at the minute, which is not a choice that I would make, but is a choice that is being made and has been made, I think, for the last 3 games, probably because Damon Severson is in the doghouse right now, which is where he should be. Let me get that straight. But rolling 7 defensemen is always going to be tricky for, you know, a variety of reasons. But of the defensemen, Zach Werenski had 4 shots on goal. Ivan Provorov had 1 shot on goal. That was it from the defensemen. No shots on goal from Christensen, Johnson, Mateychuk, Fabro, or Severson. That's a problem. Of the forwards, the only forward that had more than 1 shot on goal was Koromachenko, who had 4. Kent Johnson had 2. Dmitry Voronkov had 2. Cole Sillinger had 2. That's it. Corrali, Fantilli, Aston Reese had 1 shot each. So 0 shots on goal from Monahan, from Van Riemsdyk, from Olivier, from Pucher. Like, it's not good enough. And the Blue Jackets can't keep doing this over and over again. And it's easy to look at this and be like, oh, well, they're playing fine at home. So once they get back to Nationwide, everything will be fine. Like, that's not... You play 50% of the season on the road. Are you just planning on losing every road game and being like, it's okay because we're winning most of our home games, you know? Like... And yes, the Blue Jackets finishing at 500 would be like a massive improvement on the past, 4 seasons, 3 seasons, 4 seasons. Like, you know, winning all your games at home and losing all your games on the road still gives you like 41 wins on the season, which I think would be the most that the Blue Jackets have won, I think, since 2019. But also that feels like a real unsustainable way to play 500 hockey. You know, you can't count on winning every single game at Nationwide, and they haven't won every single game at Nationwide. Like, going back to it, they are, you know, they're 11-7 at home. Basically, they've lost 7 games at home and they've won 11 of them. On the road, they've won 4 games and they've lost 15 of them. Like, you can't keep going like this for a lot of different reasons, but like, just. I don't know how you fix it, is I think the most frustrating thing, because there's nothing that you can look at and be like, well, they're doing this at home and they're doing this on the road. And so what if instead they do what they're doing at home on the road? Like, you can't just, and I don't think the coaching has any answers here either, because Dean Everson is like, yeah, I don't get it either, which is not like necessarily the thing that you want to hear from your head coach. So like, where do the Blue Jackets go from here? Because at this point in time, they are, 40 games into the season? 37 games into the season. So just under halfway through. This is not like a phase. I don't think this is something that you could just kind of grit your teeth and ride out. This has to be something that you fix. And unfortunately, I don't know how you fix this. You know, because it doesn't look like they're doing anything. Like, it's not like they have a big binder of things to do at home and things to do on the road, you know? They're playing the same systems. They're playing the same players. So, like, the goaltending has been shaky, yes, but the goaltending is not the reason for the home versus the away. Like, can we just, like, try and trick them? Can we just, like, bring all of the stuff from the home locker room into... like, take it on the plane with them, get someone to, like, set up the away locker room so it looks exactly like the locker room at home and try to, like, trick them into thinking they're at Nationwide? Can we talk a bunch of Blue Jackets fans into, like, traveling and being loud? Because, you know, like, the energy at Nationwide is great. You know, what if we just lie to the team collectively and tell them that they're just at home, and actually, no, don't be silly, you are at home. So play like you're at home. And, like, obviously that's not a solution, but, like, what is the solution here? You know? hopefully they figure it out soon, because like they can't keep going on like this. There's a couple of players that I want to talk about specifically. I want to talk about Denton Mateychuk, who has really, really impressed me in his very short NHL stint so far. And I want to talk about Daniil Tarasov, who is doing the opposite of that. So we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I want to talk about Denton Mateychuk and his NHL resume so far. So we'll do that in just a second here on Locked on Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about Rocket Money, because Rocket Money can help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice. Like, that's happened to me. I had a bunch of subscriptions that I didn't realize I was still paying for back from the COVID times when I desperately needed literally any enrichment. I subscribed to a bunch of things and then forgot about it. And Rocket Money made it really easy to track them all down when I realized I was paying several dozens of dollars a month for things that I wasn't using. It's like having a personal assistant just for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. And it brings everything together in one place, whether it is your subscriptions, your spending habits, or even like the financial goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when they're using all of the app's premium features. The subscription tracker is kind of the big one for me. Like I said, I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved like $50 a month. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future, which means I don't need to stress about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/LOCKEDON. Welcome back to Locked on Blue Jackets. I've done my home and away rant. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about something fun, which is Denton Mateychuk, who kind of unexpectedly got the call, I think. I wasn't necessarily expecting that, especially like, okay, so Dante Fabro missed a couple of games with injury. It looked like Zach Werenski had like legally died on the ice and was helped off, and then I think missed 3 minutes of game time total. So it made sense that they were calling up Mateychuk in case there was injuries, but then those guys were all healthy, and Mateychuk is still here. So, they've been rolling 11-7 for a while now, but I want to talk about what I'm seeing with Mateychuk, which is he is exactly as advertised, and like, okay, I've watched a bunch of him in the AHL. I watched a bunch of him in the WHL playoffs last year, or as much as I could watch, given the game started at 3 a.m. my time. This is commitment, etc. But he looks like he doesn't look like a different player, but he has adapted to the pro game way faster than I thought. Obviously, he was one of the last cuts at training camp this year. I think he was one of the last cuts at training camp last year, if I'm being honest, and if I'm remembering that right. And then, he goes to the AHL. He leads all defensemen in scoring. He leads all rookies in scoring. He's like 4th in team scoring. He's doing all of this as a 20-year-old rookie defenseman, gets the call up, and hasn't like blown people away, I don't think. But when you look at his like off-puck play, which was a huge issue with David Jiricek, and I'm not comparing the two players because they're very different types of players who fill very different roles. But one of the big criticisms of Jiricek was his off-puck play. Denton Mateychuk's off-puck play is so good, and I think partially that's because his skating is he might be the best skater on the team. Like, and that's not hyperbole. Like, this dude is such a good, smooth skater that, like, frankly, sometimes he makes his defense partners look kind of clumsy. And, sometimes that's because his defense partner is Jack Johnson, who just does kind of cruise out there, like a Buick on the ice. But he's out skating guys like Zach Werenski, and like Zach Werenski's never been the best skater in the world, but Denton Mateychuk is making him look clumsy. He hasn't put up points yet. I believe he got his first NHL point on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just trying to desperately pull up the stats that I immediately closed, because this is Locked on Blue Jackets, and that's what happens. I close pages and then need them 12 seconds later. But Okay, so he hasn't registered a point yet. He's only played 3 games, but in those games he's played 1836, 1726, and 1642, which is like, if that's not a sign that the coach trusts you, I don't really know what is. When you look at his ice time compared to, like, again, for example, David Jiricek's ice time, he's clearly doing all of the right things. He's impressing the coaching staff. The points will come. He is an offensive defenseman. You want him to record points, but right now he's doing other things right, which is really great to see, because what's really important, I think, for an offensive defenseman is what happens when the points stop adding up, because defensemen are just not going to put up the same number of points as a forward, unless those defensemen are like, Quinn Hughes, who is just so good at scoring goals and doing the offense thing, if you get a Quinn Hughes out of Denton Mateychuk and, they're similar sized players, and I'm not saying that Denton Mateychuk is going to turn into Quinn Hughes, but if you get that kind of player out of Mateychuk, like, that to me feels like just a huge win. But just to kind of go back to my original point is I've really been enjoying watching him playing without the puck. And that's important because you spend way more time in a game of hockey. You spend way more time without the puck than you do with the puck. Like, even the best players in the world have the puck on their stick for maybe 5 minutes of a game. Even Zach Werenski plays, 25 minutes a night. I would guess he has the puck on his stick for maybe, again, 4 or 5 of those minutes. He spends 20 minutes without the puck. You're going to spend a bunch of time without the puck. And so it's really interesting to watch what Denton Mateychuk is doing, again, without the puck, which is learning, adjusting, figuring out what is and isn't going to work. He got burned on Saturday with one of I want to say it was the first breakaway goal. Again, teaching moment, like, he screwed up, whiffed on his takeaway, and it burned him. And I'm almost 100% sure that will not happen again, because you learn from those mistakes, and the important thing is he made the mistake and he didn't immediately get super glued to the bench about it. He was allowed to go out. I think he missed a couple of shifts, but he was allowed to go out for, the rest of that period, the rest of that game, and make up for that mistake. Obviously, the game didn't go the way that anyone wanted to, but the game is one game, and again, you're seeing him learning, you're seeing him adjusting, you're seeing him, honestly, faster than I thought possible, go from the WHL to the AHL to the NHL in terms of, like, processing speed. Because frankly, I think that's the most important thing for a young defenseman to learn in the NHL is how fast can you think? Can you think faster than, for example, David Pastrnak skates? Because that's an important skill to learn. Maybe Pastrnak is a bad example, but like Nate McKinnon, for example, who's one of the most terrifying straight line skaters that I've ever seen. Like, can you think faster than he can skate straight at you? That's important. And Denton Mateychuk is so far looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with him so far. Excited to see him continue to learn and grow. I do want to see what he's like with kind of and like, he's been playing a top 4 role for the most part, but I would love to see what happens with 6 defensemen, give him like a regular defense partner and roll 3 lines instead of having to like shoehorn Jack Johnson in every so often. I do think that Damon Severson is kind of in the doghouse right now. And I don't really know what the solution is to that, but I guess we'll see. And we'll go from there. So, unfortunately, from the good, we have to talk about the bad. Not the bad about Mateychuk. I have nothing bad to say about Mateychuk, but Daniil Tarasov, they need to figure out what to do with Daniil Tarasov because they are quickly approaching Tristan Jarry levels of, oh God, what do we do with this player? So I want to talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk about Daniil Tarasov, unfortunately. This was his first game, I think, since December 5th, and it super did not go as well as they hoped. Here's the thing. If you, a young goalie, don't play for fully 3 weeks, like, that's a problem. And he hasn't even been, like, dressing for games, for all of those games. You know, he was healthy scratched for, I think, 4 games. They had Jet Greaves up, and he was either the starter or the backup. And if he was starting, then Elvis was backing him up. Apparently, Tarasov has been doing a bunch of extra work with Nick Backstrom, the goalie coach. Not that Nick Backstrom, the Finnish one. Clearly has not sunk in yet, hasn't figured it out yet, but, like, man, what do you do with this guy? Because right now he's basically unplayable. Like, his stats, awful. He's got an 857 on the season. He's averaging over 4 goals a game. He has allowed, in his last 5 games, he's allowed 4 goals on 28 shots, 6 goals on 36, 5 goals on 30, 3 goals on 29, 7 goals on 22 shots. That's going back to, like, November 2nd. He's only played 5 games in the past 2 months. Like, something's got to give here. Reports are saying that he has refused the conditioning assignment, which is kind of the drum that I've been banging for the last couple of weeks, is send him out to Cleveland for 2 weeks. You know, don't risk putting him through waivers. See if you can find his game down there. Bring Jet Greaves up, or if you want, bring Jet Greaves up. Or even bring Zach Sawchenko up if you really want Greaves to stay in the AHL and get some time down there. But, like, send Tarasov down, see what happens, see if he can refine his game down there, bring him back up and see what happens. But apparently he's refused that. He doesn't want to do that, according to Portsline, which he is well within his rights to do as per the CBA. However, I don't know that his current situation is better for him, because now there are fewer options, right? Like, he is a pretty good candidate to get put on waivers, quite frankly. I don't think he'll get taken. His stats are just abysmal. Will he bounce back under a team with better defense? Like, possibly, but the Blue Jackets have been a much improved defensive team this season. Like, this is not a case of this is a good goalie playing behind a terrible defense. This is a goalie playing behind a much improved defense that, okay, yeah, still has improvements to make, but he is, I think, statistically, like, the 3rd worst goalie in the entire NHL right now. He's probably not going to get claimed on waivers, and if he does, oh well. Quite frankly, his contract is not unmovable. Like, it's not like people are gonna balk at picking him up. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I think it's about $1 million, and he's an RFA after this season. So, like, honestly, it might be that they just don't qualify him. Yeah, he's making $1 million and $1,050,000, which is a really confusing amount of money. An RFA next season, is a UFA the season after that. So, like, he's got to figure it out. Contract year, he's in real trouble of just his qualifying offer not being extended. He will become a UFA. He'll go somewhere else. He might go back to Russia. Like, he has to figure it out, which is really frustrating because he was a goalie that showed all of the potential in the world the last couple of seasons. Like, going back to his stats, they are just awful this season. But last season he had a 908 in 24 games. Season before that, not great, an 892 in 17 games. The season before that was his first season. He only played 4 games before getting injured, but he had a 937 in those 4 games. Like, small sample size, but all the potential in the world, and he just can't seem to figure it out. I think partially it's that he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Like, this is his 4th season and he's only started 52 games. He's averaging, what's that, like 12, 13 games a season? Something needs to give, and I think probably what needs to give is that he has to either go to the Monsters or go somewhere else, because he's not going to get playing time. I think the way that his game on Saturday against the Bruins makes me think that he probably isn't going to get another game for the foreseeable future. And I don't know when the Blue Jackets' next back-to-back is off the top of my head. But my guess is that he probably won't play until then, unless, knock on wood, something else happens. Does Elvis get hurt? Knock on wood. Do they decide to bring Greaves up and move things around? I don't know. But the Blue Jackets do not have a back-to-back until January 22nd and 23rd. So that's their next back-to-back. So it could be that Elvis plays the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games before there's another back-to-back, because they don't know that Daniil Tarasov is going to get back into the lineup. He really didn't do himself any favors, which is really frustrating. And you know that I hate to criticize a goalie. As on this show, we love and respect all goalies on this show. Tarasov hasn't been good enough, which is really, really frustrating. So I'm sure we'll talk about it more. I'm sure we'll continue to talk about the goaltending on this team, because that's what we do on this show. Is we get like a month at a time where we're like, man, I'm not worried about the goaltending at all, and then it just lights itself on fire and throws itself into the river, which is fine. So that's kind of what I've got for today. Tomorrow we are going to talk about tomorrow night's game, which is against, I want to say, the Carolina Hurricanes. Again, I had the schedule open and closed it immediately, because why would I keep things open that I need? But we'll talk about that. Blue Jackets, I believe, are 1-1 against the Hurricanes this season so far, so still all to play for in that season series. And we'll go from there. But that's tomorrow. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find me on Blue Sky without the underscore. You can find the show on Twitter at LO_Blue Jackets, soon to be on Blue Sky. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for making this your first listen of the day. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.